How did you put together financial projections for this business?
So the way I did it was again pulling from my corporate finance background. So that's the hardest thing I think people are going to be faced with because the numbers really aren't going to lie, and the underwriters really rely like that's what they're looking at. So for me, the way I really did it was how people assess this industry to begin with. Okay, this industry is assessed based on turns per day. Whether you agree with that or not, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's a crappy metric to use, but that's how it's assessed. So that's how I'm going to translate this financials into. So, okay, what is the size of your store? Okay, that's your size. It's 3,000 square feet. And now you're just plugging in little things and you're building that house. So this is the lease cost. This is my equipment mix. So how many 80 pounders, 60 pounds, 40s, 20s, and so on that you will need in that space. Okay, so now you have that understanding. Well, what are you going to price them at? Okay, each one is priced at this price point. So now you could start to extrapolate what your revenue is and what you need to do and achieve to get to your break even. A lot of this stuff is using assumptions because if you don't have a business that's running, you're really just kind of going with, okay, this is a percentage of this and doesn't make sense. And there's a tremendous amount of resources out there that allow you to get to that and drive you to those things in a conservative way. So if your North Star and how you're going to present to these people is 5 turns a day, that's where I need to get to. Well, you're not going to open the doors and do 5 turns a day. You need to be laying out a plan on how you project this business to grow. So if you plan on being profitable or doing 5 turns a day after 2 years, well, now there's your 5 turns a day point, and you now have to backtrack into a reasonable growth rate from day one. So it's all those little things, but when you look at it, I need to build this whole financials. Yes, it's extremely overwhelming, but when you break it down into very tiny pieces, you're able to kind of figure that out and piece it together. So things like your utilities. Well, I don't know what my utilities are going to cost. Okay, ballpark, your utilities are going to run 20% of your gross. Well, let's make it 22 to be conservative. Doesn't matter if your water expenses is twice as much as it should be, or your electrical expenses is not big enough, or whatever. Not really, because you're still sucking up 22% of your gross revenue coming in and just putting it to the side as an expense. So that's the things that matter versus it being absolutely perfect. And just being super, super conservative and realistic as to where you will go. Typically on my projections when I present these things to customers to give to the bank, it's like they're not even turning a profit till halfway through year two. And that's what you need to be able to endure, because if all things go well, sure, it's 18 months to 2 years, but if you hit some hiccups, you hit a bad time, you hit some unforeseen expenses or whatever it is, that very well could be 2.5 3 years. In the pictures of 15 or 20 years, it's tiny, but it's huge if you can't get there. So that's the other biggest thing, is just being super realistic and conservative on your business plan and the numbers you expect to achieve.